I mean, from a Christian standpoint, this is how I see it, Daniel, is I'm just the steward of what God has given us, right?
Yeah.
And my job is to manage it, to honor him with this, and whether it's my time, my resources, the people, how I treat them. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you try your best.
But you're doing God's work, and that's why you live the blessed life.
I'm trying to do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to just honor God with what we have, what we do, and be fair.
Welcome back to another episode of High Value Discussions. In this episode, I am honored to sit down with a true market mover. My guest is a well-experienced real estate investor who has a track record of turning challenges into endless opportunities. He is also a husband, father, and a humble servant for Christ. In this discussion, we'll talk about his journey from his first deal to building a diversified real estate portfolio, the lessons he's learned through challenges and market shifts, and how he manages to keep his family and faith at the center of everything that he does. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ruben Sandoval.
I've always had this entrepreneur spirit, of wanting to be a business owner since I can remember. And it was from mowing lawns to washing cars to whatever I could do to make money, right? And it just started from that point. And I think part of it was too that we didn't come from a wealthy family, so it was like you had to figure out if you want a bike, you got to figure out how to get the bike.
Oh.
So I remember the first bike I got, it was 6 years old. It was for my birthday. After that, it was the second bike. You had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it was like, put it on layaway and go mow lawns and do things like that. So I think part of that was things that I needed, right? More about figuring out how to get it. Going way back then and then scaling up to, I think our first business that we did, me and my wife, was we had a little janitorial business, here in Tracy. And from there, we opened up a franchise. And then from there, got into real estate. But going back to what you were saying, or the question about my upbringing, school wasn't my thing. I struggled in school. So, if you didn't have the education, the next alternative was to go work, find a job, right? And hopefully you found a good paying job. So that's what I did right out of high school. A couple of years out of high school, got a job at NUMMI. It's a auto plant in Fremont. Now it's Tesla.
Yeah.
But I was there for 16 years. So I spent a good portion of my younger life in an auto plant.
Yeah.
On the assembly line, man, like a robot. And I was so excited about getting the job there because it was a union job, it was a good paying job. And shortly after, I'd say within 5 years, I was just like, this isn't for me. I want out. And, but, what is it that you want to do? Your education really wasn't there. And at that time, I was already married, already bought my first home. So, you're kind of boxed in, you're trapped. And because there wasn't that many jobs that you can just walk out of and go make a good income without a degree. So that's kind of like a part of the story.
Do you remember those conversations with yourself? Because when young men are kind of growing up and responsibilities kind of get higher, and then we kind of have to have that conversation with ourselves, like, what do we want to do with our life? Like, what could I be as a man that's great? And how could I provide value to my life and to my loved ones around me? So do you remember those talks? And do you remember almost like what caught your interest at first, because there are so many things that we get interested in different phases of our lives. And as we get older, it's like we get more clear-headed, you know? So we want to do this, we want to do this. And then we stop doing this and we're like, that business didn't really work out. So I venture off into something else. What caught your interest in realizing we're like, this is going to help me change my family's life and my own life personally as well? What was that one thing?
It's a good question. I mean, it wasn't like I was having these discussions within myself. It was more of you're really at that age in my 20s, I didn't really have vision, right? It was just more of just living, right? And I'm going to say, to be honest with you, Daniel, was when I actually became a Christian, right? I mean, faith, Jesus is like the core foundation for where I'm at. And I don't just say that just to say it. It is the major piece of who I am today. But once that happened, once I became a Christian and gave my life to the Lord, then that perspective changed, right? Where it was no longer I'm just kind of living and existing. It was like he had a plan, right? You know, Jeremiah 29:11. And when you asked earlier about, you know, those conversations with yourself, it was then I started realizing those conversations that he was having with my spirit, telling me that, hey, there is a plan, right? There's a purpose. There's something that I have for you.
Yes.
You know, and you know, going back and realizing that the way he made me with this entrepreneur, you know, mindset. You know, we've all been given talents, right? And we all have these things that move us and drive us. And I started realizing and walking in that, right, on that course. And you know, again, that started from the janitorial to the franchise, right? And you know, to go back to your question about seeing, you know, having those conversations with myself and where am I seeing myself, and it was just in those processes as he was taking me, and you know, whether it was lining people up that could help me, right, and learning from each piece was a learning experience.
Yeah.
And I always say the way we handle those situations, even when we fail, you know, it's gonna set us up for our next phase that he has for us.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, go back. I've been doing this now for about 18 years, right? Around there. And I'm loving it, you know, and just seeing it go from glory to glory, or from, you know, one level to another level, and learning.
Yes.
Learning and learning and learning. Going back to kind of like the real estate component of it, you know, somewhat like Monopoly, right? You start off with a house and then you scale up and then you grow it, and but they all have a certain challenge to it. And that's the part that I like. It's the challenge, is figuring out the problems that are there. You know, how do you work through it? And you know, that part of growing is I'm not trying to think of the right word for it, but that part of it just kind of happens, right? I mean, there's been some years where not too much happened from an external, but it was more internal, right? And that was valuable. That was a part where I think, you know, entrepreneurs, and I'm speaking for myself, you know, you just want to, like you want to go, you want to do the next thing, you want to go, you want to do the next thing. But there are you know, these seasons and times that you've got to kind of pay attention to, because, you know, whether it's the market, you know, it can be anything, and all of a sudden, bam, you know, you you crashed.
Yeah.
So, this part of my life, it's trying to balance things out. Where now, like, okay, let me, how can I help individuals, right? How can I bring them into this circle of real estate? It's one of those things where a lot of people won't bring you into this unless your family, your son or your daughter, that you want to see if they want to come into this, into the call it the family business, right? But my line of work, where I do the development side, the real estate investing, and I also in the sales side of commercial investment property, and I enjoy helping and teaching those that want to come in and learn. Right, I've had the opportunity to share with a few individuals and teach them what I've been taught, and want them to succeed. And so that's been a part of the last 5 years that I've been able to do that with some individuals, and it wasn't even planned, right? It just happened organically, and you build a relationship with them, and not even just with them, but just in general, whether they're tenants of mine or whoever it is, that you have that opportunity to work with them, help them, So, I mean, from a Christian standpoint, this is how I see it, Daniel, is I'm just the steward of what God has given us, right?
Yeah.
And my job is to manage it, to honor him with this, and whether it's my time, my resources, the people, how I treat them. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you try your best.
But you're doing God's work, and that's why you live the blessed life.
I'm trying to do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to just honor God with what we have, what we do, and be fair.
I feel like when you have those Christian roots, you want to pass down your success. But why do you think that people avoid that?
Let's just say, where the fishing hole is, right? There's a secret spot that you're able to catch the fish, right? And your success rate of catching fish are pretty good in this spot. It's like you're not going to tell too many people, hey, come on over here, because the next they're fishing out of your fishing hole, right?
Yes.
So you get a lot of people that are like that they don't want to share that, and because at the end you're taking, right? They look at that way, that you're going to take some opportunities from them.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, hey, somebody helped me, someone taught me and spent their time with me, and so I'm going to do the same.
Yeah.
And if they become very successful at that, well, praise God. Good for them, man. Good for them.
Did you have any guidance along the way? Did you read a book? Did you listen to somebody when it comes to even tapes or video? Or did you have somebody personally that you were able to lean on to when it comes to guidance?
I never read a book, just because I had a hard time reading, period. But, it was an individual, a childhood friend that I grew up with, that he was in the commercial real estate industry. And it was crazy, because I seen him at a wedding, and, I told him, hey, I'm going to get into real estate. He says, well, go get your license, right? So I did, and called him up, and once I told him that I got it, his office was in Palo Alto, and at the time I was living in Ripon, so we're talking a good long drive, and I was still working at Numi. So my wife always says that movie, Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if you ever seen that movie.
Will Smith.
She goes, that was you, and a lot of similarities it was, because I was working swing shift at Numi, so I would start at 4:30 p.m. and get off anywhere between 1 and 3 in the morning. So I would drive. My schedule was at least 3 to 4 days out of the week. I would drive from Ripon to Palo Alto. I'd normally get to Palo Alto about 11:30. a.m., sometimes 12, and then stay there till about 3:30. Then I had to get on the road to get to Fremont, which, it's just over the Dumbarton Bridge. And there at the office, I'd have to show up there with, shirt and tie, right, slacks, and then I'd have to stop at the gas station to change into the jeans and the steel-toe boots so I can go to my next job, right? So I did that for, gosh, I want to say at least 3, maybe 5, about 3 or 4 years for a while, actually, maybe 5. But going back to the mentor, right? I would show up and he would, say, okay, here's what you do. And he'd show me things and I would, watch him, learn, read, whatever it was that I needed to do. And here's why I say, he was God sent, because the patience that he had to have with me was like insane. Bro, that was the first time I even used a computer or a laptop or anything, right? So I'm like, how do I turn this thing on, right? It was bad. Yeah. And what was crazy, Daniel, was that, everybody there had a degree. They either had a bachelor's, master's. Yeah. There was attorneys that worked there that weren't practicing attorneys because they made more money doing what they were doing there. Yeah. So here I'm this kid that I graduated from continuation school, man, right?
Me too.
Yeah.
So I barely graduated high school.
That's it. And I was, we'd go to the printer and I'd be, I didn't even want to talk because it was like, I don't want to sound like a moron, right? But it wasn't that bad, but just in my mind, there was just this part of me where you really don't belong here, right? My mind is telling me that. Yeah. But then, my spirit's telling me, God's telling me, I placed you here, so you belong here at the table, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But it's still not registering, but you just know that you're there, right? Yeah. So I was with him I worked with him, at least maybe 8 to 10 years, right? With him there. Yeah. And then he moved to Stockton and worked for a company there, so that allowed me to work with him there. But I shadowed him for the longest time and learned what I can learn. Yeah. And it was a good experience because everything for me was what I needed. It was hands-on. I have to watch it. I have to see it, right? Yeah. And then it was time for me to move on. And when I moved on, there was that part where it's like, okay, there's a lot of things I wasn't doing because I had him there, right? And when I moved on, it was like, now you got to figure this out. You've got to figure this out. And, but again, I moved on and it worked out. Yeah. But he was a key piece. What I learned, and I know for sure that 1, it was a God thing. 2, I don't know if I would be where I was at without him spending that time with me and teaching me, right? Yeah. And sharing what he was sharing with me. And so I never, I always thank God for that. Thank God for him. And, and be cautious of that because it's easy for us to forget about those, right? And you just move on and all of a sudden you just think that you're it, right? Yeah. But not so. Those people that are there, whether it's a handful of people or a few people that God places there, they're vital, they're gifts.
When you were first getting into real estate, was it overwhelming? Because sometimes when we're in a certain field and we put so much time in and then making to an adjustment to something else, sometimes we're like, geez, this is a whole new industry and a whole another sector that I have to learn and dissect. And just like us, when I didn't come from a really good, powerful school background, I was very intimidated with the outside world because I'm like, I couldn't process things at school. How am I going to process things in real life? So I got kind of intimidated, but getting that experience, failing, struggling, putting the puzzles together, it puts the reps in us personally.
Yeah.
So even with you as well, was it like that at first where it was overwhelming?
You know, so for me, it was, I had the sales side of it, selling commercial real estate. And then there was the side of becoming an owner of real estate, right? And it's like you're trying to do both. And, in my industry, you'll find, guys that are in sales. A lot of them will just stay in sales and don't really want to transition over, or maybe, they dabble a little here and they, invest in stock and a little bit on the real estate side. But for me, it was like, I want to, eventually transition all the way over to the other side, because when I'm sitting down with owners of whether it's apartments, shopping centers, and I'm meeting with them, whether I'm trying to earn their business to sell their property, or sitting down with them on a purchase or acquisition of a property. But in the beginning stages, sitting in that seat of sales, yeah, there was challenges, right? The challenges were, the communication, right, level, whether it was, sometimes I felt like I didn't speak well enough, right? There'd be words that I didn't know how to pronounce correctly, right? Or just the internal lack of confidence in the beginning stages. And, but in time, it started to change as I started getting more and more confident. Not, when I say confident, I mean it in a good way. Confident that I belong here, right? I belong here because this is where God placed me. And no longer am I looking at my not, well-spoken, or my lack of degree. It's funny because we'll do these listing presentations. We did one yesterday. One of the guys that I'm working with, one of the guys that actually mentoring, sharp kid, man, he's got his MBA, and, and so when we do these listing presentations, we always add our profile, right? So he adds his, I'll add mine, and his has got all, bachelor's here, MBA here, and blah, 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 right? Then they go to my page, and it's just like, it's okay. It's like, I'm past that, right? It's just, and when I say past it, it's like, I'm actually teaching this guy, right? That's got the MBA. Yeah. And so my point is, I feel better now. I'm more confident because I've been able to go through and with the experience, and have went from just a salesperson now to a person that owns real estate, that I can sit there and say, I can sit in this seat and I can sit in his seat, the landlord, the owner seat, right? I can put both hats on. Yeah. And I use that because there's times when we are doing our listing presentation, I can share that with them, the experience, whether it's owning multifamily or shopping, whatever it is, that I can sit there and say, I understand your dilemmas, blah, 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 here's why, and I'm experiencing what you're experiencing now with call it tenant laws or whatever, right? So that now puts me on a different playing field. So
yeah, I used to get kind of intimidated too in the past when it comes to, I don't have like that resume that everybody has, especially, walking around nearby Silicon Valley, and especially having these people on my podcast. These people are coming from Harvard, Stanford, MBAs, venture capitalists, senior vice president of public traded companies. Like, I'm in their firms, I'm in their households. There's so many examples of people doing great things without the education.
In general, I think if a person has both, they have that entrepreneur spirit and drive and have that education, that's powerful, right? But I've also seen where they have the education, they can't think outside the box. And that's something that you can have the education and you can even be an entrepreneur, right? But thinking outside the box is something that is next level.
God given.
Yeah, you've got to be able to think outside the box, problem solve, and that's what separates that small portion out. Is that person that can figure it out, and even if it means it's can be done, right? But yeah, I think there's value in both. You know, like the individual that I'm working with now, he's got the degree, he's got the drive, and he is becoming very successful. Now it's just teaching him how to think outside the box, right? Think outside the box. What do you see? How do you figure this out, right? Sometimes they'll get it, and sometimes they won't because it's not part of their makeup, right? So, but I think it's for both. I mean, go. You know, if my son wants to go to college, go to college. You know, definitely go to college. At least get your business, degree in business, bachelor's degree. But it is extremely competitive out there now, and I think people that that can find a trade and leverage that, you'll be just fine.
And even when we were talking upstairs, you were saying there's 3 types of things that create and generate wealth. You're saying either you create something outstanding, trading, investing, the stock market, or real estate. Why was real estate so attractive to you?
It's a good question, Daniel. The real estate part of it, I think I was always fascinated by real estate. That's why, I wanted to get my home. It was like, I think we got our when we got married, a couple of years after that. I think I had my home at 24 years old, right? But there was just something about real estate. And going to this level of it, I think it was just because I seen it in front of me. When I'm still working with clients that own real estate, you're just seeing it firsthand, and you're seeing the wealth that's behind there. You're hearing sometimes their story and how they started, and you're getting a first look of what it can become, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, there's I've seen disaster stories, right? And I've seen the success stories, but for me, it was like I could do this, and I'm seeing how they're doing it, and this is what I want to do. And you see the opportunities and how you can create wealth. Like you said a little bit ago, there's only a few ways that you can really create wealth, right? And this was the one that I was in, and this is the one that I'm seeing opportunities, and so that's how I just ended up choosing that this is the route that I'm going to go. I mean, I invested in stocks, like just the basic 401k things, and just the basics. Just never got into the day trading, or never got into watching certain things. To me, it was just like I don't trust myself with that. I ended up being I treat it like gambling, right? Like, okay, I'm all in on this stock, and next thing you know, holy crap, I just lost it all, right? So I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. But it was funny because when I was working at Numi, and they announced that they were closing, right? And this was right when the market crashed. The real estate market crashed. Everything happened 2009, right? And Numi announced they're going to close, and I just basically took I, you know, the severance money, 401k money, I took everything and all in on a couple of properties, two properties, right? And my tax person says, you're crazy. You're going to get hit with capital gains. I mean, and I'm like, it's okay. I see what I see. And for the short moment that I was in the business, I realized that there's an opportunity, there's a window there. And, there was like a couple of houses that we bought, 2 houses.
So that term, I see what I see, opportunity.
Yep.
So how do you go about that when you were saying you're analyzing a property, you're looking at a certain opportunity? What is the process like of executing on that specific land, property, building? What is your process like?
Another good question. It varies on the property type, but there's a couple of ways that we do it. One is just the numbers, right? It's all a number game. But for me specifically, when I started off, obviously it was just you're buying a duplex, low price, fix it up, flip it, that type of thing. But as we started to scale up, there was more of now there's more at stake, right? You're talking a $50,000 purchase to $4 or $5 million purchase, right? More at stake. And you definitely have your due diligence. And it's kind of trying to see what can I do with this property. I'll give you an example of one just to help framework it. There was a building that I bought in Stockton. It was an office building, and I had an idea for it, right? The idea that I had was convert this over to a assisted living facility. And I was all excited about that. I just felt like, that's an industry I want to explore or look into and get into. One, because there's a need. Two, it could be lucrative. So I bought the building, got it at a good price, did some of the preliminary stages of the use type, checked out off the box. And then shortly after that, we had COVID hit. And, that kind of really hit everybody in a bunch of different ways. So that industry, I still didn't know much about it, right? At all.
Yeah.
And I had actually approached this company behind us that had a similar type of business. So I felt that we could do a joint venture, and had a couple meetings with her, and it didn't go anywhere, but it still allowed me to explore. And I always look at this time that you get to explore as like you're learning something, especially if you don't know it, right? Yeah. So then I called another company that owns and operates these facilities and met with him, and he was pretty transparent and open, and basically said, look, the timing's not right. I wouldn't recommend it. You're better off looking for a facility that is struggling than try to develop it. So I said, okay. Took his advice, right? And then the next thing I did with the building was like, let me try to convert this over to rentals, apartments, right? Did that. Went through the city process. Again, another learning piece. Had drawings done. I mean, did everything that I needed to do to get the use change approved. But going back a little bit to when COVID hit, we had cost of goods went up. Then we had labor costs went up. So we had all these little factors that were there that I had to calculate, right? So here is what I had set in my mind to do, and I was, putting money into this part of about, drawings and meetings and, all this stuff, right? But yet, still feeling that the timing isn't right. There's too many things that are going on. I don't want to force it. I don't want to try to make this happen. And then you have interest rates go up, right? And then now we've been seeing vacancies factors in that Stockton area go up, meaning there's a less demand for rentals. So all those pieces were there, right? That I had to sit there and say, okay, all right, God, let me not pull the trigger on this, right? And long story short, just sold the building last month to a housing department that is going to, nonprofit that's going to turn it into a different type of use, right? But they took our plans, they took everything, and we're able to utilize them. And it's going to be for mental health facility, which good use for it. We made money on the sale, but had I went down the path and tried to force this thing, it could have cost. It could have cost, from money standpoint, and I also, more so mentally, the stress, right? So I'm giving you the long answer to how do you go through your process. Everybody's different, but mine were a variety of different things, right? And seeing the signs and realizing I can't force this. And I think that's something that I don't know what the right word would be, but there's that part where it's going to kind of separate some people from, I always like to use the analogy like kind of a hunter, right? You can get somebody, you can go out and teach them how to hunt, man, but then you'll see or hear or watch on TV, there's that one person that can just like read something or sense something or go over there because that's where the deer is going to, they just have that, and I'm not saying that's what I have, but there's those parts where you just got to kind of like be disciplined to the seasons or the times or the elements, whatever is out there, right? Because that's crucial. And that's where you see people that I seen lost their butts, right? And that was the other part where being in this industry, you'd seen the people that were very successful, and then you've seen those that lost it all, right? And may make the comeback, may not, but I took what I seen from them and their why not, or their yes or their no's, and kind of just try to keep that on the back in my backpack to be able to remember that. And again, I go back to when we ask God give us wisdom. God, what do I need to see? What do I need to hear? What am I missing? Right? And this is not just trying to make it sound all spiritual, but this is life for us. This is what we do, right? And when we ask those questions, he's, especially when he's put us in these spots that we have a responsibility to our family, to our employees, to everybody. And if we are true to what we say we are, that I'm just a steward of what you've given me, and I need your guidance and your wisdom, he's going to bring it. So
110%.
I'm giving you, the long answer to it. The formula, obviously there's numbers to it. There's a variety of different ways that you process it, right? And I always I'll talk to people, a variety of different people, the yes ones, the no ones, the conservative ones, I'll talk to my wife, I'll take it all in, and I'll talk myself into it, and then I talk myself out of it. And I talk myself into it, and I talk myself out of it. And then there's been those opportunities where this is a no-brainer. I just feel like this is a good opportunity, and I've done my due diligence, and I still feel good about it, and I don't need to talk myself out of it, right? Yeah. But a lot of it in the beginning stages was very, very talk myself in, talk myself out, talk myself in, talk myself out.
I love that word opportunity that comes from you, because I feel like, there are people who wait for the opportunity, and there's people who just make their own opportunities. And we are currently sitting inside of one of your opportunities. Mm-hmm. Can you break down where we're standing in and what we're in? Because this purchase that we're in is only 5 months old.
I knew the building, and I knew that it was a unique building, and I go, I'm going to take a drive-by real quick, and called up the brokers, and they said, yeah, it was still available, just hit the market, and I gave them my spill, told them, hey, this is what I do, I'm in the business. I kind of knew some of the guys from that industry, but yeah, it's a 48,000 square foot building, mixed use. One part of the building's over close to 100 years old. It's a registered historical landmark, right? Beautiful building. And when I first seen it, it was just about the numbers and looking at the opportunity. But then, just trying to say, okay, what do we do with this? It's a hotel now, shut down hotel, but, I see, we can turn this into multifamily. There's restaurants that are here now, and there's opportunity to scale these restaurants up. There's just a big variety of different opportunities here, but the location's on point. The pricing that we got this on was amazing. And this is going to be I'm excited about this project, right? Yeah. And I mean, there's things that we buy that they're just apartment buildings, fix them up a little bit, throw some paint on it, and and let's move on. Right. But this one here has my attention. Like, I'm committed, I'm focused. I'll wake up sometimes just thinking about some ideas, and yeah. So again, I thank God that I'm here now, and this is the opportunity that's here, and just see where we're going with this, right? So, like, you and I walked and showed you kind of the building, first phase, second phase, third phase, the ideas that are on our mind, what we're seeing, and that's part of the excitement, right? Is you see it in your mind, right? The vision. You start little by little, you're moving closer and closer and closer to it, right? Yeah. And there's going to be obstacles. There always is. Yeah. But again, God will give you the answer, right? Always does. Yes. Always does. And so far we're 5 months into it, and we're making good progress. And I think it's going to be about a 3-year project, but the first phase will be done before the year's up. Yeah. We'll have that part going.
You know why I feel like this is such a big attention grabber for you is because, when you buy a property, it's for 2 people, maybe for a family, so on and so forth. I feel like this specific project, it's a community project.
We were walking around, and I was showing you these things, and we haven't even put it on paper yet, right? These are just the ideas, and I was telling you that I reached out to a company to help put together some renderings, so I can put that on paper so we can see it. But yeah, it is, like I shared with you, I want to involve, some youth. I want to involve community input. And I know that the city wants something to be done here because, again, this is a 100-year-old building. And it's right on the corner of 11th and Central. So it's like the gateway into the downtown. but yeah, it's getting that vision and putting it out there and seeing it come to pass, right? And a friend of mine told me this story a long time ago, about vision, and he was saying something. It was Walt Disney. I guess Walt passed away before it actually was built, right? Disneyland. And when they got it opened up and part of the whole, what do they call it,
Yeah.
opening.
Grand opening.
Grand opening. Somebody had made a statement, that it was sad that Mr. Walt wasn't here to see this, right? And then I guess his wife had said, "You're wrong. He had already seen it long before this even happened, right? So you're just seeing, you're the second person that's seen it, right? Because he's already seen the vision."
Yeah.
So, those are things that are exciting.
I've known a lot of Christian men, when they do touch success, gets to their head. Bad decisions come around. Maybe their fear of God isn't so big, but I feel like when you have that fear of God, you're very cautious with your decisions. Even with you, my friend, you've touched a lot of success and stayed grounded through it all. Kind of like how you were talking about how guys, they touch and they reach success and they lose it all. Why? Maybe they weren't literate with they weren't stewards of their money. They weren't stewards with their time. They weren't stewards of their energy. But you do all those. How do you stay grounded, even with all the success coming your way?
It's a discipline, but I guess I have to say it's again, going back to God, right? It's like I represent him, right? And not letting it get to my head. They're going to be tests, right? We're all going to have a test, right? Whether we're lying, whether we're stealing, whatever those things are, because when it's money based, right? Reputation, money, temptations, and there you go. You did something wrong or something that really cost you. And, for me, and I'm just sharing my stories here with you, that I believe God helped me with making sure that there is this heart check, right? I mean, I made a mistake one time and it cost me money, $40,000, right? And I could have got out of it by lying. I could have avoided that person, and possibly no repercussions. But I knew that wasn't the right thing to do, right? And so I had to pay. I told them I was going to pay them the $40,000, and I did. Right, I paid them the money. So I think it's those times right there are kind of like I don't want to say the make or break, but I really believe that those are those moments that God can see that He's learning, right? He's learning to have integrity. He's learning the things that he needs to learn, because I'll tell you now, Daniel, and this is just the honest truth, that, before I became a Christian, I wasn't going to do any of those stuff, right? I'm going to get mine, you're going to get yours, you're not going to get over on me, and blah, blah, blah. And that's how it is out there now. I know guys, and I've heard some stories of some guys that make big money, and screw somebody over $20,000, right? It's just like, why would you do that, right? If you make all that money. But anyways, going back to the point, what's keeping me rooted and grounded is, again, having our faith in the Lord, and not just saying it, bro. You grew up in a Christian environment, right? And I didn't grow up in it. You know, I didn't become a Christian until I was 26 years old. So there was a lot of teaching and changing that God had to do, right? Especially if I'm going to go down this path, because a path to me, when there's money involved, and success, whatever level of success is, it'll hurt a person. It can crash it all, right? It can destroy families, and I've seen it. I mean, I've worked with guys that are very successful. They're either on drugs, alcohol, or in the third or fourth marriage, right? But yet make great money. And so for me, it was like I seen it firsthand, examples, and realize that no, I don't want that path, right? I want to have something that my son can look up to. And we're married going to be 33 years. 33 or 32. She's right there. And so one son, and want to continue to just build this I don't want to say legacy, but just to build this to where it's first off grounded, right? Yeah. It's grounded, and we always try to emphasize that to my son, guys that I work with, and let that reflect the community, the people I deal with. I had another scenario where one of the colleagues that works with me, he was just like, and his background was property management, and he's kind of seen how I was dealing with some of these tenants. He goes, well, why are you doing this? Why are you giving them this leniency, right? Or going, I says, Andy, I've got to keep in mind, one, like I've told you before, this is God's, and I'm just the steward of it. And I'm going to do the first thing that comes to my mind and be fair and try to work with them, right? Now, does it mean that I'm going to be this doormat? But it means that I am giving you or that person the opportunity, right? Opportunity to help, to show some mercy, or whatever it is. So how I went here, I don't know. But going back to being grounded, right? So I say that to say, yeah, I could say, hey, I pray every day, or I read my Bible every day, and that's the key. That's part of it, but it's really what you're doing out there, right? Yeah. That's what it really is. It's really what we're doing out there. And that should reflect what I'm doing in my time with God and my family.
There's always that term that goes around, like, be very highly selective of the individual you choose to marry. And they can either enhance you or deteriorate you heavily. So I've known you guys for a very long time. And like I said, every time I see you guys, it's always an enhancement. And I love how you guys are solving problems together, both in business and obviously in marriage. And that's why you guys are constantly enhancing and God-fearing individuals. But how important is it to have a partner that enhances your lifestyle rather than deteriorating it?
It's crucial. I mean, look, when we got married, Daniel, she was like 19 and I had just turned 22, right? And so we spent majority of our lives together. And, from opening up, our businesses together, she didn't want to. So it's funny because when we first started doing this, she was a dental hygienist. She was, working a job in Livermore. And I'm the one that wanted to, venture off to be an entrepreneur, business owner. And when we opened up our Quiznos, she sacrificed, right? She got into this industry that she never wanted to get into. And I would see her back there making sandwiches and just doing the whole thing. And I didn't even know how to make the sandwiches. I'm just the guy that got these buildings open, right? And I would just work the register or get out there and talking to the customers. But she sacrificed and really, did something that she didn't want to do, but she did it, right? And so that was a key piece that you have somebody that is going to sacrifice and get behind your dream, your vision, because that was my dream, right?
Yeah.
That was what I wanted to do. But she left her career and got behind me, and that was kind of, a key piece.
Yeah.
And when we got into the real estate thing, we got into it, and there was a part where we lost money on our first, multifamily deal, right? And we lost money. It was just a bad deal, and me is like, I don't want to do this again, right? It was a challenge.
Yeah.
But we got past that, and here we are, and she's learned to trust me and learned to realize that, hey, this is his gift, this is what he does, and vice versa with her. She got into creating her own fitness program, trainer, whatever it is that she gets involved with. I'm there to support it 100%. So we've learned to do that with each other, not feeling that mine's more important or yours isn't or any of that, because I look at what she does. She's impacting people's lives, whether it's through the physical change or mental change, whatever it is. And I see the fruits, right? And that's what matters. We see the fruits of what God has allowed us to sow into. So, yeah, it's just kind of worked that way where there's no, like, when she plans something out for, call it a retreat that she wants to do, I'm all in however way I can help out, whether it's me going there. And, it's funny because we did it last year, we did it the year before, where I'm the cook, right? I'm it. Yes. So, and it's not about, hey, well, let's just hire people to do it. It's like, no, this is what you want. You tell me what you want me to make. Yeah. We'll do it. We'll cook and go and serve, right? Yeah. And go all in, get behind it 100%. Yes. Yeah. And that's what she did with us. That's what she did with me. And that's what I did with her. And that's what we're doing now together. Yeah. So,
you guys are both different sectors, but I see it as a unit.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a separate thing. I see it as one big unit.
Yeah.
And that's why you guys are constantly enhancing. And it's a beautiful sight to see. But man, every king needs his queen and every queen needs his king.
Bottom line.
And my last and final question, my man, in all of your experience when it comes to real estate, as an investor, as a businessman, as a married man, as a father, what is one piece of advice that you want to give to the audience? One piece of advice, my man. What would it be?
Because I have a family, my son, my wife, right? And really value that, I want to word it right so it makes sense on what I'm trying to say, right? Because the real estate thing, the business, the entrepreneur stuff, at the end, really that's like the core to my heart is my family. My son, my wife, that's the core. Yeah. So I say this to be where it's like, be deliberate about paying attention and making it better, right? And I'm just learning that, man. I've heard horrible stories about families, kids that were just neglected, and you were so busy here, you were busy there, and so I'm giving you the long answer to when we were touching about the real estate and this and that investments. Invest it all that you can with the family, right? My son, my wife, that's the core to me, right?
A true investment.
True investment, man. The true investment. And I don't say that to sound, a certain way. I gave you my answer to where I'm at today. When I wake up in the morning and I'm out there, I got into playing golf, right? And I suck, but I like it.
Yes.
And it's really my first hobby that I ever got into. And I was out there this morning. I got up extra early just to go out there, and that's it. I go by myself, and those are my times where I just listening to some worship music, thanking God for the day, thanking God for my family, my son, the business opportunities that I have here, just doing what I'm doing right now, and just allowing him just to kind of like pour into me about the season that I'm in, and that's parenting and raising my son up, right, and being this example.
Thank you for honestly being a blessing to a lot of people, even though they may not say it to you often, but you truly are doing God's work. God bless you, my brother, and I can't wait to do this again. Let's go eat some food.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by with a review. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.